A very good morning to everyone present. Great to see you here and thank you for coming. So, welcome to Pathfinders Bounce Back episode 6. It's the sixth episode today in our series of 10. Bounce Back is a 10-part talk series, and today is our sixth episode. Uh, So let me introduce you to first the Pathfinders, and then I can introduce you to Bounce Back for at least all those people who are attending for the first time. So five of us, five coaches from different locations, different parts of life, different specializations, we came together and got talking about how we share a common belief that with great power comes great responsibility. And we believe that it is our duty and our responsibility to contribute and make a difference out there in the world. So we came together and formed Pathfinders. And when we were thinking about what we can do uh, once we have come together, Bounce Back, the talk series was formed. Being a 10-part talk series, we are going to focus on the challenges which the pandemic has thrown up and how we have overcome those challenges or how we can overcome those challenges to grow, to become better, and to just get out of this pandemic in a much better state. The five pathfinders, the five coaches who have come together, let me introduce you to them very quickly. Let me begin with me. I'm Coach Hemant Jain, the Unblock coach. I've been a change management consultant for over 18 years and been a trainer. I've worked with very large organizations undergoing transformation, focusing on the people side of change. Many working professionals find themselves stuck within glass walls and glass ceilings, unable to move forward. Through coaching, I help them go higher and further in life and their career. Arif Hussain, Coach Arif Hussain, he's a certified mindset and performance coach, an author, and a fitness enthusiast. A devoted family man who has been associated with healthcare industry for over 2 decades. He guides working professionals between the age group of 25 to 45 years to achieve their health and professional goals through mindset transformation. Next up is Coach Mohammad Saeed, an MBA with over 3 decades of international work experience, a seasoned professional, an author, and a certified mind shift empowering coach. Saeed is passionate about reaching out and actively engaging in guiding people to overcome their life challenges through mind shift and transformation. We also have Coach Uzma Golandas, who is a certified ambition and unambiguity coach. She's extremely passionate about helping people with issues that stand between them and their success. Being an English language trainer and a personality mentor, she also focuses on confidence and communication related matters. A postgraduate from London, she currently lives and works from the UAE. Last but not the least, Coach Jyotika Shetty, a strategic life coach, international author, certified trainer, and an image consultant who's helping people achieve their next level performance. She holds an MBA from Manchester Business School and has over 20 years of experience in corporate banking and entrepreneurship. Today, we also have a guest amongst us, Akshay. Akshay is a corporate lawyer practicing debt, trade financing, and restructuring, insolvency, and bankruptcy. He works as an in house counsel for an international bank, also a counsel partner for a firm, and advises on policy related and legal issues, including but not limited to personal finance, investment, and strategy. He also mentors and coaches working professionals and students pursuing masters in law on career paths and fintech. Now, that's the introduction to all the Pathfinders and our special guest today. Today, we are going to talk about money. And since money is going to be our subject matter and money is a very, very sensitive topic, here comes our fine print and disclaimer. What we are going to share today is based on our personal experiences, is based on what we have learned from a wide variety of sources, including failures in life. right? Failures have taught us a lot of things, and which led to our conversations with many people on what would be the right way to handle money, manage money. So what we express today are personal opinions, learnings which we have gathered. They should not be taken as financial advice. Don't go around investing or taking action based on what we are saying. Our goal and objective today is to set you on the path towards financial literacy and financial planning. Begin to manage your money. Okay, so with that disclaimer, let's begin our conversation about money today. Right? I talked about learning from failures. So let's start with my story a year ago. The pandemic had hit. It not only hit people, jobs, businesses, it hit home very closely. My job got hit by pandemic. At the same time, my brother and my dad, who were in the textile business in Mumbai, the business, of course, because of lockdown, was also hit. And for the first time in my life, I realized that the two sources of income in my family were stopped. There was no income happening at all. I realized that without the savings which I had or which we had as a family, it would have been difficult to survive. The savings gave us confidence as well as gave us the comfort of being able to go through the pandemic. On the subject of savings as well as my income, this is where I would like to invite Coach Uzma. Coach Uzma, could you share your experience, your learnings about these subjects?
Hi everyone, good morning. Money is a basic necessity with infinite reasons to have it, crave it, or become greedy about it. But the irony is that for many people, there don't seem to be as many ways to attract it into our lives. But hey, not all hope is lost because it isn't too difficult. To add to the number game in your bank account, you can start with something as simple as saving some money, right? Now, saving is a term that causes many to become anxious and stressed. While in the minds of others, all they can visualize is cutting down on household expenses. This is a highly flawed view to look at a concept that is actually pretty accommodating and flexible. The more you save, the more money you will have in hand to invest, to fall back on, to create wealth, or for anything else that may be important for you. What is worth remembering though is that we look at money as a means to attain satisfaction and thus come to associate it with happiness, as it enables us to buy the things we need, want, and desire. So, money is actually not an end in itself. Therefore, we should never forget that saving money is a route that requires balance because an extreme in this regard can leave us feeling frustrated and exhausted. Because saving money, if taken to an extreme level, could instill the feeling of constant deprivation. Pretty much like a fad diet that may leave one feeling burned out and completely denied, naturally leading to giving up on it altogether. We need to have some fun, enjoy something fancy, or experience luxury every once in a while. So, well thought out, planned, and most importantly, a discussed approach with your closest stakeholder will help you to arrive at the exact track that is right for you and them without having to experience complete deprivation. After all, we live only once. Saving is just one of the ways to ensure you have money in hand. There's another way that's just as logical to improve your inward cash flow. That is earning more. No, I'm not joking. Instead of relying on just our primary sources of income, what if we could find some alternate sources of income, like another occupation that can be pursued part time or on the side as per our convenience and time, where we get to choose the number of hours we can put in depending on the constraints in our schedule and the extra income expected. This does not necessarily have to be something you are formally qualified for. It could be a hobby like imparting dance or music lessons if those are your interests. conducting a summer or holiday camp for children if you are innovative and creative enough to keep young minds engaged, swimming lessons, cooking, or baking classes. The ideas for a side hustle are endless. And I haven't yet even mentioned the most common, popular, and overused option of all time, tuition classes, where specific or all subjects can be taught to school or university students. This will mean you have some extra pocket money always, which you can decide to use as you please. So that could translate into a few fancy dinners a month or a quick getaway every couple of months without anything coming out of your savings or primary income. Or it could even serve as an extra special addition to your investments or future planning funds. In fact, this is such a popular concept amongst the wealthy that I recently read in a finance related journal that the billionaires of the world have as many as 7 different sources of income. This is how they got richer even during the pandemic. So basically, what you'll be doing here is that you'll be minimizing the financial deficiency by earning some supplementary vitamin M on the side. Having spoken about savings and maximizing the incoming of your income, it would be kind of like leaving the topic in the lurch if nothing gets spoken about investing in the most precious asset, that is you. We live in a highly competitive environment, which is often described as a rat race or a dog eat dog world. Sounds fierce, right? In such a scenario, investing in yourself is the equivalent of putting on an armor and equipping yourself with the best tool that gives you an edge over competition so that you remain at the top of the game to the best of your ability. This could happen in the form of acquiring a formal education, upgrading your existing skill set, or venturing into an allied or a completely new area of professional skills, which may lead you to your additional source of income. That's what we were just talking about. And do not forget that this could even include something as obvious but extremely ignored aspect of bettering your health or temperament by consulting a professional. Constantly having an edge against your rivals and exhibiting it has become the norm, as no one can afford to lose an opportunity, especially because of the turbulence that we have been experiencing since we entered 2020. But if we let our health suffer, be it in the mental, physical, or the emotional aspect, we are then losing something that is very foundational. And that is the exact opposite of acquiring an edge. Don't you think? Also consider the fact that the education system does not always send you out as a finished product that can deliver its best in the concerned field. There is a huge gap in the skills that the newly churned out freshers have and what is exactly the need of the industry that employs them. This reconciliation can happen only when the importance of what skills we have versus what actually is needed is realized. Now, from my side, I leave you with that thought to decide for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Usman. I think there was quite a bit of insight out there, whether you talked about too much saving leading to self-deprivation or even about alternative sources of income. And of course, the gem of it all, investing in yourself. So yeah, as you were talking about, I realized that in terms of alternate sources of income, over the years, I hadn't focused on that. I had a good job. I was earning well and I was happy and content. Never even thought of generating or looking at alternate sources of income. For several years, I did not invest in myself. I did not invest in trainings or skill development. It's only very off late, last year at least, when I was hit by the job loss, that I actively started investing in myself. And today I see that a good investment was made. On the savings front, what I did last year when I went through the job loss scenario was actually for the first time consciously started to track my expenses. I became aware of my expenses. Where was I spending the money? Because I had to control and I had to figure out where do I control it. So on that note, Coach Saeed, I would like to hear from you on the subject of how do you go about budgeting or allocation of funds and related areas. Over to you.
Thank you, Hemant, and good morning to all the ladies and gentlemen here. Yeah, it's a nice thing you asked, Hemant. The thing is, one common mistake that we all, either it is salaried people or even sometimes it happens with businesses, small businesses especially, that we think whatever is coming, whatever you earn, whatever incoming is available for us to be spent. It is at our disposal, and we end up spending it. And most often, people like us, we spend on impulse buying. Like if I call back now, I don't know where my cyber shot is. I don't know where my Sony Handycam is. I don't know where is my Nikon D90 is. I don't know, but that's a lot of money that I spent. See, all these things we do because either we feel at that time passionate about it, because this consumerism is such a thing that, it makes you feel that your life is incomplete without that product. And you go about buying it because you think you have money with you. Okay. And all these things will lead to a place where you suddenly realize, as you said, when you lost a job, or when I stopped working also, that is when the tap stops, when the trickling stops, then you realize, okay, now where is this money going where? So that's what happened to me also. If I have to talk about myself, when I started my career, when I earned less actually, I had a very good planning. I know where what is going where, especially when I got married. But as I grow in my career and as the things have become nice for me, the abundance has actually set me loose, and I lost control of it, and which has actually landed me into the wrong place. So as far as budgeting concerned, what I would say is that the practice that I had and which worked very well for me is that there is nothing called free money. For everything that you have has to have a name. Okay, you create an envelopes. I mean, in those days, I had physically envelopes in my bag, in my home. But now that we are in a different world years later, so you can create virtual envelopes or buckets, whatever they call it now. So you put money into those buckets for those things in a month, at least a month in advance, for every expense that you have, either it is small or big. Maybe it's electricity bill, maybe your son's school fees, maybe it is your fuel expenses, maybe it's rent, maybe it's taxes, everything. And also those expenses that you, foreseeable expenses, like you want to have a vacation after 1 year. So what it costs, the tickets, the hotels, that everything you plan, you put that money there every month. So by end of the year, you have that money ready with you and you go. And if you don't have it, if you could not put it, don't go. As simple as that. But because most often what we do is, because we have been talking to family about vacation and we have been telling friends about vacation, or because somebody went there, or because somebody bought it, we also do it. Don't do it. Unless you have it with you, you are prepared for it, you are ready for it, don't do it. Because when you do it, you are putting yourself in a vulnerable situation. So what I say is, your salary and your income, whatever is it, it is not available for you to spend. It is for you. It is available for you to plan your future. So everything is not for spending. So everything that you have, expenses that you have now, that you foresee now, should go into those pockets, and whatever is balance, the investments, I think in future our friends will talk about it. The second thing is that we do is, apart from impulse buying, we do an impulse loan. Like somebody will come and say that, okay, you don't have flat, why don't you buy it? It's available. Money is available, flat is available, or anything, car that you don't need. You already have a car, but a new car probably, or a new flat, something that you haven't planned, or even if you plan but you are not ready for it, because loan is available, you go for a loan and you buy it. But what happens with this is that, God forsake, if something happens to your earnings, you are in shit. And it happened to, I mean, as you said, it happened to you, it happened to me. All right. So you don't go into loan unless two things. One, at least for the next 6 months, you have your EMIs ready. In case your job stops, everything stops, you are not affected by that, you'll pay it by the time you figure out how to do it. And the number two is that in a worse situation, even in the 6 months things did not set right, and that loan is burden on you, it is still there, you will be able to clear it by some way or other. And that's what I have done in my life. While my things stopped, and when I had a loan on my flat, the first thing that I did is I liquidated other things and cleared the loan. Because loan is a very big burden on you, because the amount of interest that you're paying is unimaginable, which you don't realize, but it is ruining. It's just ruining. So don't get into loan unless you are really, really prepared for it. Think very carefully before getting into loan. So with these two things, I leave it to other our friends to talk about other investment parts.
Thanks, Saeed. I think you've hit upon a few very important things. I think the budgeting, the envelopes concept is a very simple, very doable, but a brilliant technique in terms of managing and building your corpus for certain big goals that you have. The whole concept needs to be applied at different levels for even a 5-year goal, 10-year goal, whether it's a 1-year goal. About the loans, I think what you have pointed out is very important and critical, or something which a lot of people miss out. Prepayment of loans is another area which a lot of people are not thinking about. But do imagine, in fact, in the first year of your loan payment, if you can pay one extra EMI as a loan repayment, a prepayment, just 1 month's EMI, it can shave off an entire year of EMIs. Just do the calculations, ask your bank, and they will tell you. Only if you ask, otherwise they won't tell you. So it's extremely important that we are aware of these things. And whenever we have a bit of an extra cash, we can put them in the right place for effective savings or future savings. Great. Now coming to taking the conversation forward, we have talked about savings and we have talked about loans. And here I would like to direct a question to the audience members also. We have got 43 members in the room. So discounting the 6 of us, we still have 37 audience members purely. So question to you is, what has been your experience with money management? Or what has been your relationship with money? Have you been having a comfortable relationship with money, having plenty of it, adequate, or you have been chasing money in a way that during parts of the month you feel that, okay, now the money situation is very tight and I don't know what to do? Have you been taken by surprise by events in your life? It could be a job loss, it could be a health emergency, on any of that kind. We would love to hear from you in terms of both what your experience was and what did you learn out of it, because this forum today is about sharing our learnings with each other. So please pour in your learnings in the chat box and share it with all the members present. Coming to savings, I had this. So I'll give a disclaimer and also admit I'm very ashamed to say that till the age of 40, I did not invest anywhere. I did not invest any monies into any of the numerous investment tools available. My excuses were, I don't understand stocks, I don't understand mutual funds, and I was just trying to play safe. In my past history, I have seen a couple of investments made in my family fail. We lost a bit of money. In fact, we lost quite a lot of money. And that kind of made me risk averse, so much risk averse that I was not even investing in safe investments. What I realized over a period of time and over the years as I started looking for information about money is that I was saving money, but I was not investing them. I thought I was saving money for the future, and I realized that money was actually disappearing. And to just drive home that point, let me show you all a visual. This is what happens to your money over a period of time. So it's a very simple illustration. And what eats up your money is inflation. Things get more and more expensive over a period of time. And the same amount of money, its value or the things it can buy, that reduces. So 1 lakh rupee in the year 2018, just 2 years ago, As time goes by, its value would reduce. It would become literally worth only 5,000 rupees when we reach to 2055, which means it can buy only those many things which today are available for 5,000. If you want to look at it in another way, think of education. Think of the entire cost of your own education and compare that with the education of your kids, or in some of your cases, grandkids. In my own house, I see my entire school, college, engineering, and MBA. If I put together that amount today is sufficient for only 2 or maximum 3 years of school education for my kids. That much more education has become expensive. So if I were to save that much amount for my kids, it's not going to be enough. I will need a lot more, which means I need to invest. And how does investment help? Again, I'll take a very nominal increase in the 8% rate of, let's say, either call it an investment, or it's the interest rate, or let's call it even a return on your investments. I've got 2 examples in front of you on the screen, Ram and Shyam. Both started investing at different age groups. Ram, the smart guy, started investing at the age of 30, whereas Shyam is pretty much me, who invested at 40 plus. Now, Ram, since he started investing early, till the age of, early accounting till the age of 60, so he had 30 years of investment. Shyam, since he started at 45, had only 15 years. Ram started with an investment of only 1,000 per month and continued for the 30 years. Shyam, since he started late, and now since he started at 45, he had a better earning. He invested double. It's 2,000. At the end of the period, since that periods were different and amount different, they ended up investing the same amount of money. But look at the bottom of the table. The returns, the total wealth they accumulated. Ram invested a total of 3,60,000 and was sitting on 15 lakhs of wealth at age 60. Whereas Shyam, after investing the same amount, was sitting on only 7 lakhs. It was almost half. Starting early is extremely important, and investing regularly is important. Now just imagine, instead of 1,000, if we were to talk of 10,000. If Ram had been investing 10,000 starting age of 30, he would be sitting on 1.5 crores by the time he reaches 60. His retirement is taken care of, expenses for the children, their education, everything gets taken care of with that kind of a corpus. Let me bring you another example. Why investing early is more important. Why? When I look at this, I got the shock of my life because I started investing at 40. In this example, the first person is saving 1,000 a year for only 10 years, and then he's stopping. He's not investing beyond that. So he saved and invested 1,000 per year from age 25 to 35. That amount has grown to 150,000 by the time this person has reached 65. Whereas another person who started off late and continued investing without stopping. So from 35 to 65, 30 years the person kept investing, but could not reach that 150,000 amount. Now that big a difference it can lead to. So I think what I'm trying to drive home the point is, one, start early in your investment journey. If you haven't been doing till now, start today. Start now. Talk to a financial advisor and start. Don't delay it for waiting for a better market situation, waiting for a better advice, waiting for more information and knowledge. Start off and then be regular and consistent in your investments. Now, coming to the topic of investments, I would like to call Arif. Arif, you have had some experience with investments. So we would love to hear from you and share your lessons learned from investments. You will have to unmute yourself, Arif.
Thank you, Hemant, for asking that. I always feel that personal financial management is one subject which is not taught in schools, but it is actually something everyone has to deal with in their lives. And because I have not learned in schools, I learned by failing again and again, right? So though the only investment options I had known from my elderlies were invest in properties, right? I did the same, and I tell you, I have never been happy or contented by my decisions when it came to invest in properties. Maybe the timing was not right when I started it, right? Uh, so in my experience, the only people I had seen earning are the brokers, banks, and the government in the whole process of these property transactions, right? And the two big learnings for me are to have as less of liabilities as you can, and never keep all your eggs in one basket, which is one term code which we have been using it since ages. So there are many options to invest your money in low as well as high risk markets. The higher the risk is, the higher the chances of rewards are. Diversification and planning of funds when you are still earning, not when you have stopped earning, but when you are still earning, help to overcome a sudden setback. And reaching out to experts would help in the long run too. So I have learned this very simple principle that start low and go slow. So this simple principle will be helpful in deciding your appetite for risk taking and remain calm even in the adverse situations, which is very important to see through the peaks and troughs of life. Now, we sometimes take drastic steps when we get into lows of life. The high times are all enjoyed, right? We party, we do all those things. But when it comes to lows, we tend to take very damaging steps, and those steps can actually lead to long negative impact on our lives as well as our close ones. Now, so therefore, start low and go slow. So I tell you one story about mine. So once I had a huge liability. I had one huge home loan, and I was not worried all the time, but it felt like a huge burden at times. And to free myself from that burden, it became like one of the long-term goals that I had not planned at all. No, I made several strategies to overcome that. One was to increase my income, to which there are limitations, and then invest some amount in different places every month so that I could build a corpus which can help me relieve from the huge loan I had. Again, depended on my income, but at least I was prepared. I wanted to have an insurance for the same amount in case something happens, but by God's grace, I could clear off the dues without getting into it. Right. So leaving a liability in legacy would be the last thing I wanted to leave for my next generation. Now, the financial instruments that helped me in this time of need were actually the PPF, the various kinds of insurances, mutual funds. So these were all basics. As I am financially not that literate, there is a lot of difference in learning theories in books and the implementation that depends on market risk. So my only suggestion to youngsters, as you have already mentioned, is start planning your financial goals as early as possible. Start learning about how much to spend, save, invest, and also leave the legacy depending on your income. And do not put all your eggs in one basket. Now, there are a lot many options which you can learn and make your money work for you. What you have to do is reach out for help. You don't need to be a one-man army. Over to you, Iman.
Yes, I think eggs and baskets, we need to learn about all the eggs and all the various baskets that are available out there. And I think Akshay will also tell us about some of the new baskets which are emerging on the financial landscape for investment. Okay, so I think amongst the four of us, we have talked about the salaried person. We also touched upon savings and things like that. But there are a lot of businessmen out there. I think they were also badly hit during the last 1 year where complete business shutdowns were there. A lot of people are, even in normal times, non-pandemic times, struggling with their business, the way they see business as an income source or a wealth generation source. So one is that. Second thing, the last 1 year, people have been taken by surprise by their insurances. Whether it was life insurance or whether it was health insurance, on both areas, people had a lot of surprises. So I would like to invite Coach Jyotika to touch upon these two subjects, because I think amongst the five of us, she has the most business experience. Over to you, Jyotika.
Thank you, Hemant, and a very good morning to all the audience present here today, including our special guest, Akshay Arora. Well, yeah, it's very true that as far as business is concerned, we need to take care of a few things. First of all, for the past few years, my husband and I have been in business for the last 22 years. And we run our own contracting company back in Dubai. From that point onwards, I have met so many people that most of them have this aspiration of setting up a business. Now, yes, my husband was one of them, and we started off a business way back in the year 1999. Now, the idea when people start businesses that all the eggs go into one basket, which means that whatever resources you have, you put into doing your business. But what they don't understand is that you are also an employee of the company. In fact, you are the number one employee of the company, which means to say that when your business can start accommodating the expense aspect of it, then you have to also incorporate your expense or your remuneration as a part of the company expense. Me, because I was already working in a bank at that point in time, and I had this financial awareness, and very early in our stage in our business, we started in taking, earmarking the salary. Salary means my husband started taking salary very much early in our business. Now, when I moved out of my job after 12 years, that was also pretty early in my age. And when I joined as an executive director, I was formally inducted as the director of the company. I was also equally given a salary. Now, do not mix your profit aspect into your remuneration aspect. There are two different things. Now, you may, if you think that you are running a business for profit, it's true, you're doing that. But then you also have to understand that you have your daily expense, you have your regular things that you need to take care of. Now, how you want to do it is a total different story. But what I would say is the best practice for anyone who's starting a business, when your business can start affording doing that, start earmarking your own salary as a part of the expense, because that's essential rather than burning out and leaving yourself into a complete frustration mode. Now, the second thing is the insurance aspect, what you mentioned. Now, the insurance aspect is a very essential one, which I think the awareness in India is now, as far as the medical insurance is concerned, the awareness is increasing. Now, this awareness was there pretty much in the West or in the Middle East as well. Now, I worked for a very large bank for a very long time. So for me, as far as my insurance is concerned, my entire family was covered. So I absolutely had no problems on that aspect. But what I didn't think about is probably the day I would be leaving the organization and I would not be eligible for a pretty decent insurance at a reasonable premium. But lucky for me that I actually left my job when I was 33 years old. That was not too old as well. By that time, my husband already had his insurance, his health insurance and his life insurance and all of that. But what about my 3 kids and me? So the moment I left because the moment I left the job, my insurance ceased to exist. I immediately took an insurance. But at that time, what came to my mind is also insure myself in India. Because eventually, we as expatriates in the Middle East, one fine day you have to return back, and probably it's too late for you to take an insurance at that point in time. So the first thing that I did was I took a life insurance as also a health insurance. I've taken a floater policy, which covers my 2 kids and myself. Now, this I feel is a security aspect, which is securing that, yes, when I'm going to come back to India, it's completely taken care of. Now, 2 years back, I moved to India with my 2 children. And this has pretty much taken care of all my risk aspect as far as health is concerned. But for all those who are actually seeking to be business people, there's one aspect that I would like to highlight here is the need to have a key man insurance policy when your business grows, which is to cover your business risk. Now, when your business grows to a considerable expense, there is also a risk factor of, if you are the only person behind the show, then there's a huge risk as far as your longevity is concerned. So for example, if something happens to you, then what happens to the business? So when you take a term policy, which is essentially a key man policy, that covers the business risk. Now it is for a fixed term period. It is not for a very long term period, unlike your other health policies. I mean, your life insurance policies. So these are the few things that I have done. Now, I am not an insurance expert to actually tell you what to do and what not to do. These are my personal experience. So for those who are aspiring to get into business, or if you're looking at insurance policy, this is a key aspect that needs to be taken, whether you're in business or not. Have an insurance policy, a medical, a life insurance, but please consult your advisor or an expert, insurance expert, or even Akshay could add more value to this particular topic. So this is from my side, based on my experience in both business as well as entrepreneur, as well as corporate banking. Over to you, Hemant.
Thank you, Jyotika. Those were interesting insights and quite an eye-opener for at least a few people in terms of how the businessman should be thinking about his or her role into business and their place in terms of drawing a salary, as well as from the insurance perspective. Interesting ones. So now that the coaches have spoken, I would like to invite our finance expert Akshay to the stage, to the screen, to share his experience, to share his insights. And Akshay, my request to you would be that you have heard all five of us. We have talked from our experiences and covered the arena of financial literacy from our lenses. If you think there have been some gaps which we have missed out, some areas where we haven't spoken, would love to hear you throw some light on those areas. And at the same time, since you are in the thick of the financial markets and the financial world, what are those new investment opportunities or investment in, let's say, tools or instruments that people should be aware of so that they can diversify their investment portfolio? So over to you.
Hey, thank you, Hemant. A very kind introduction, first of all, and thank you everyone for being here on this morning. I understand it's a Saturday morning, and thank you for being here, guys. Having said that, I mean, very clear on the perspective of what is the kind of difference that we are deriving between the rich and the not so rich. The difference is from the thought process into an active and passive sources of income, right? When you say something as close as active and passive source of income, it basically means that an active source of income would be derived from where you need to be actively present. This could be out of a job or your profession or your business, so on and so forth. And coming on the thought of passive income, you know, I would want to chime in a thought from Mr. Warren Buffett, who happens to be the god of investing and maybe my guru for sure. I mean, I learn a lot from him. And that thought comes, I mean, there's a quote by him which says, and I'll quote, that if you don't find a way to make money when you sleep, you will work until you die. Leading on to that thought from Mr. Warren Buffett, I believe it is very important for a person to be aware of different routes of passive income. You know, when a person who's maybe you can call affluent or rich in nature is traveling, he's traveling and he's enjoying himself, and he's at the, you know, the midst at the outset of being comfortable, is because he has 4, 5, 6 passive sources of income that are constantly working for him, even though he might not be available at his active source. Further leading on to that, that thought, what is the kind of difference, or what are the key elements that we need to sort of explore while we do something called personal finance? Personal finance is very, very important. Why? Because a person, why do we do a job? And this is open to the floor. Why do we really do a job, or why are we really doing a business? There are majorly 2 aspects around it. This is either for satisfaction or for money. And so, you know, putting in that example, I would say that money occupies, or gaining money or your profits, that occupies 50% of the reason as to why you are working in whatever profession you may be. But personal finance, when it comes to personal finance, what are the key determinants that one needs to take care of and slight regression and, on what are the kind of mistakes that one could occur from. So I would start with that. Are we giving enough time to personal finance? I would say, guys, that in a month, even if we give 2 to 4 hours to just read up or make better or to introduce our personal finances and keep working on those, that is more than enough for us to lead a better route on handling our finances better. What are we doing wrong there? Well, I would say that a person, say for example, A is married to B, and they're both living a good life. But at a stage in life, A happens to have a disease and has a sudden demise. Now, considering A was the man of the house and the woman, his wife was not really introduced or to the idea of where are the passwords, where are the records of insurances, the SIPs, all the other investments that the A and B have maybe combined, made. And this could be your DMATs accounts, there could be PPF accounts. If they have appointed an account nominee to their FDs and savings, etc., etc. So very, very important aspect to discover that please share your information on finances with one person, at least one person that you trust. Save it not on your mobile phones because it can be explored and can be traced, because this is something as exclusive as passwords. But please maintain these records so that whatever changes or differences can come at a point in time when, say, introducing to the idea of a death and an insurance, where you need to sort of claim an insurance. If you do not, you spent literally all your life putting in money into an insurance and you can't really use the benefit of it because the other person that requires it did not have the correct route to access it. So that's one. Having said that, I would touch up on the aspect of financial literacy, which is not taught in schools. Financial literacy is something that maybe I would suggest most schools, I mean, if they take my suggestion there, to introduce that, because every person technically at whatever stage or point in life there are, needs to be financially literate, some more, some less. That could differ depending on the time, experience, and the interest in it, but it's required for sure. But everything that comes in here comes with a risk versus reward ratio. You put your money into least risky investments, you don't get the kind of returns that you might get in higher risk investments. So I will start with breaking the red tapeism on some routes that have been set in by older people, ancestors, and so on and so forth. And I could say the least for India that savings account and FDs and too much concentration around real estate, these are not the talks of the present time. Times are changing. While I would easily compare it to to technology. Today, we are all sitting on a Zoom call, virtually connecting ourselves to something as beautiful as Zoom, which virtually connects people sitting at different places. We have advanced on technology so much. Then why not advance on routes for financial literacy? Times have changed and there are way better financial products that have come in. And we really need to explore those. Guys, to start with, savings account is bad. And I reiterated, savings account is bad because you keep your money into savings account, you would not at all be able to experience the power of compounding, which was shown on a slide with Ram and Shyam before. It's very, very difficult to compound your money when you put it in something as low, giving as low as an interest in savings account. We need times are to invest on paper assets. This could be your mutual funds, SIPs, stock markets, could be your investment funds, real estate investment funds, etc., etc. So for a person, although who doesn't know finance and is not interested in it, to start with, invest in 3 to 4 SIPs. If you are not even interested in knowing the CAGR as to the compounded annual growth rate or the percentage of interest that these mutual funds have been giving over a certain point in time, please use a PMS advisor. There are portfolio management services, there are financial advisors who will do this for you. Use their services because they are there for a reason. For a person, although my thought would obviously increase that personal finance is important, so I would continue on the idea that you need to also be financially literate yourself. There are kind of SIPs that you could invest in mutual funds. At least I would talk about my portfolio. I would divide it into a low risk, which could be my debt instruments. On SIPs, I would divide it between a mid cap fund, which would expose it to mid cap companies, and a large cap fund, depending on the risk appetite that a person can have. But please at least diversify your mutual funds portfolio into 3 columns, which could be high risk, low risk, and mid risk. Also, what could be explored is the thought around technology funds, which could be something like a digital growth fund. I am very bullish on technology, and we evidently see that is changing. Similarly, something like EVs, like electronic vehicles. This is the ray of the future. Investing on environment techniques and ESGs is something that is the need for the future, because we all know with the state of pollution and the growing population where we are leading ourselves to. So having said that, there is a mechanism or a principle that is very well explored in the financial industry. It's called a 50-30-20% ratio. The 50% of this is of the earnings after tax that one should be utilizing towards necessities. Necessities is, if any one of you have studied even preliminary economics, we know the difference between necessities and wants. 30% of this specific money after tax should be spent on wants or desires. This would be something like, buying a car or like a fancy car would be something that is a want or a desire. Again, 20% of this, the remaining, would be the money that you have to save and invest towards your financial goals in different formats. So I would suggest that this 50% can go a little lower, the 30% can go lower, but the 20% should not grow lower. At least 20% of your income you should be saving. Besides that, at least to my own portfolio, and I'm talking from my own perspective, I would divide my portfolio between a 4-3-2-1 or a 4-3-2.5.5. This would be my division between my liquid fund and my PPFs and my government bonds and FDs occupying the 40%. This would be the least risky investments or tax saving investments that I have. And ahead of that, the 30% is something that I would be touching up on my SIPs, which at least I am running 4 to 5 SIPs at the present point in time. I would diversify that between, like I said, a high risk, low risk, mid risk, and a growth fund. And the 20% is my complete exposure to equities. If you see, this is the least risk, low risk, mid risk, and high risk sort of setup. And I am equally sort of distributing my income, and I'm reducing my percentage of exposure on risk, because I'd want some percent of my income to be added to risk. But I can't diversify, I can't portray myself to be completely risky on 100% exposure, that if the markets don't do well, all my savings that I've done in my life die out. So touching up on FDs, avoid such FDs. Avoid FDs with low spreads. For any kind of banks or institutions that have been selling you FDs for very, very high terms, for a portion of maybe 20 years, 15 years, FDs is something at the present stage with the present investment rate, with the present interest rates that it's giving, and also being taxable in nature. You should look at the aspect of exploring FDs with low spreads. And if you want to invest in FDs, go for regular FDs with low duration and reinvest when the interest rates increase. Also, touching upon the aspect of tax, please, there is a concept called advance tax. Kindly pay your advance taxes if you have any income in addition to a salaried income. And this could be including interest income from any kind of fixed deposits or savings accounts. This tax payable has to be more than rupees 10,000. And you would be surprised to know that even if you delay it by a day, you pay a penalty of 1% per month for 3 months that are subsequent to payment of that additional advance tax. Again, I would not lead on to SIP diversification because that's something that I've already touched. I'm going on a 4-3-2-1. The fourth one was the FDs and tax bit. The third one was SIP diversification that I have already touched. Second, equities. If you are not comfortable and you are not tracking the markets, although I would suggest everyone to be financially literate on markets as well, because with the changing times, exposure to equities, at least a little bit of it, is very important, is what my suggestion would be. But you can lead on to something as good as coffee can investing. Just invest in companies which have a market cap of 100 crores, have a revenue growth of 10%, at least greater than 10%, and a return on capital employed more than 15% in the last 10 years. Okay. And the least suggested suggestion that I although invest in, because I am okay with losing that sort of money, is crypto. Again, I would not suggest it to anyone who can. I would only invest the kind of money that I'm okay completely losing. If I have to invest in the likes of a crypto, if I have to invest in like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. So this is the 4-3-2-1 mechanism. Now, quick trivia, guys. Quick trivia on specific thoughts on salaried incomes. Very, very well explored under Section 80C PPFs. PPFs, although well explored, would not give you the same rate of interest as compared to a voluntary provident fund. In today's time, a PPF would give you 7.1% interest as compared to a voluntary provident which would give you 8.5% interest. There are minor differences. I'm not going to get into specifications, but please contact your employers in knowing more about voluntary provident funds and saving your investments and putting in like your tax savings onto VPFs instead of PPFs. Again, real estate. We have the red tapeism around, please, let's buy a house. My father would tell me the same. And I have tried to change his thought process around real estate as well. Guys, there is something called Real Estate Investment Trust. This has been introduced. And you would be surprised to know that you can invest as little with the amendment in it. You can invest as little as 15,000 rupees as far as you have a DMAT account and own little portions of the prime most commercial properties in the country. I'm sitting out of Bombay, and Bandra Kurla complex is one of the prime most areas for commercial properties. I could be a small little investor in a property that has an exponential growth path, which could be, a commercial property. So try to know more about REITs, REITs, they're called REITs in short. And you can totally sort of release your liability on whether or not will you get rental income, whether your tenant would run away, whether your land would have a specific suit on it because of a claimant, whether you'll get an injunction because you did not do your due diligence well, and so on and so forth. All the risk is transferred on to the REIT holder, to the REIT trust that holds it. Also, again, touching up on one more trivia, on tax, you can claim renovation amounts that you have spent at cost when selling a house. These are expenses that that you pay for bringing in assets like paint. When you buy a house or when you have a house, you have something like paint or renovation costs that you incur. Whenever you are selling that house, this could be something that could be treated as an expense and could also involve aspects like installation, stamp duty, renovation costs, and you can save tax on this. These are the basics that I would expect anyone to sort of know or try to read up more on this. Try to dedicate a certain portion of time of your day on getting yourself financially literate. Like we have explored before, guys, the power of compounding is beautiful. And I stress on this again. If you start early, you would be surprised. You would be surprised to see that the power of compounding can make such a big considerable difference in the long run. Also, sometimes it does not matter as to how much you are earning, because I don't think we can change that. You can, but that's not the aspect that we are looking at it right now. So you can at least make yourself financially literate and try to explore more on how you invest, right? And trust me, even if a person makes 30x more than you in the present times and does not invest right, over a period of 15 to 20 years, you will be so much way ahead of him that, you know, you would be surprised yourself to see. That's my 2 cents for now. Thank you, Hema.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you. That was a wealth of knowledge and information which you've shared. I think the key takeaway was do invest, know your investment options, share your investments information, your bank account information, all your financial information with a partner or with at least one member of your family, so that the information as well as the wealth is useful to all. So great. Thank you very much, Akshay. Before we dive into the Q&A part of our session, let me just quickly ask all our coaches, in one line, what would be the key takeaway for our audience from each one of you? So let me start with Uzma. In one line, what is the key takeaway for the audience?
Invest in yourself and alternate sources of income.
Fantastic.
Just 2 things.
Thank you. Saeed?
Yeah, save from whatever you earn and invest from whatever you save.
Awesome. Awesome. Arif?
Be aware where you invest, and don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Fantastic. Jyotika?
Start early.
Could you repeat that?
Start early. Begin early.
Yes, begin early. And I would just add, invest regularly, however small the amount. Don't stop the cycle. Akshay, in one line, what would be the key takeaway for the audience from your side?
I would like to quote Mr. Albert Einstein and say, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it, earns it. He who doesn't, pays it.
Fantastic. A very well, a great takeaway. And I think besides the Warren Buffett quote, make your money work while you are sleeping, or you will have to work till you die. Fantastic ones. Okay, so now we'll open the floor to the Q&A session. And while we are going through the Q&A, we'll also post the links to our next session so that members can register. Also, a link to the feedback form so that we continuously get the feedback from the audience and keep improving our sessions in terms of content as well as structure. So some of you would have already noticed the change in structure today. So here we go. I'm quickly going through the comments and looking at some of the questions which came up. And let's try and give at least some of the answers. Yes, I saw one comment on gold as an investment option. There is a lot of comfort around gold. So Akshay, would you like to throw some light on gold as an investment option?
Sure. I mean, gold, I would like to chime in from the thought that gold is considered to be a comparatively safer investment, and you can have exposure to gold. I'll tell you the reason why. When there is a lot of volatility in the market, and by volatility, I mean when there is superior scare in the market, something like when COVID came in, you saw Nifty is touching to as low as 7,800 and 8,000. It's presently sitting at a level of 15,800 and above. Why did it reach there? Because of the market scare. It works on a demand supply ratio. You pump in a lot of money when you are bullish in the market, and you are very scared when you are sort of losing money because the markets are falling down. So gold works as a great hedge. The reason behind is because the US Fed, when it releases currency, it's backed by gold, and gold is considered to be a great hedge in a volatile market. When you are losing your money, at least on equities, or even your SIPs, because technically you have your fund managers exposing your income to a lot of equities or debt or etc. It could be a diversified portfolio. So when you have something like that, gold works as a great hedge in a volatile time. That would be my crisp answer for now. Obviously, I mean, there are different complexities around gold as well. Sometimes it goes up with the rising market. I'm not going to get it too much into that because that's going to take maybe 15-20 minutes.
No problem. But I think one more additional point, if we have to give to the audience, that those who would like to get into that a little further and read up about it, traditionally we all have been investing in the physical gold. We go out, pay money and buy gold. Now you have got the options of buying virtual gold or electronic gold also. So do research a bit about that. Sometimes that may be useful.
Even on that, Hemant, sorry to barge in, but even on that, try to explore the routes of ETFs, exchange traded funds on gold. They work as a great route. You do not, I mean, you save up on making charges that you'd have. And physical gold also would considerably sell at a slightly lower rate. ETFs are very easily transferable. You don't have to move out of the comfort of your house. You can easily transfer ETFs. So hence ETFs, I would say, is the best explored route on gold, at least in the present.
Yeah. So just like we are moving towards a cashless society, we are moving towards a goldless gold investments also. So interesting turn of times. There's a question about what is the right corpus to build before taking retirement at 60, 65. I think while the corpus that you need would depend on what is your lifestyle or what lifestyle you aim to have post 60, 65, which city or town or country you are living in. It's a very subjective thing. Akshay, from your perspective, is there any guiding principle people should use?
Sure, too many factors that circle around it. So I would not be able to come on a figure per se as to what is the right corpus.
Yeah.
But as far as you have your emergency fund sorted, which should be technically, on your income, it should be 10 to 12 months or even more, depending on how, I mean, if you grow in time, it can increase to 15, 18. If you have your emergency fund sorted, and if you are equally aware on an average as to how much spending or expenditure do you have, and you average it out by way of a monthly moving average, it can be something like, if I spend 30,000 in 1 month and I buy some asset which is of a depreciating value in the other, and at an overall level, I take out an average of 12 months and I make a figure, right? So a figure which is 8x or 10x on the aptitude of what is an overall spending that I do in a month. And obviously, why I say the 8x, 10x, because a person's health depletes with time. Your expenses can increase. You might have a family, etc., etc. An 8x, 10x on an average exposure in a year is something that could be a corpus that can be thought about. But different people would have different thoughts on this. So I might not be able to get very specific to this.
Yeah. So, Uzma, Saeed, any thoughts you would like to add on the retirement corpus? Jyotika, Arif, anybody?
I think much is said about that, and it's an individual thing, right?
Sure.
So the individual has to decide what he or she wants in after retirement.
Absolutely. So, okay, so let me close it with this, that while you have to consider the city or town you're going to live in, what is your monthly expense, what is your lifestyle level, which would directly impact your expenses. Also think about the fact that if you're looking at 60 or 65 as retirement, there is 20 years of life more that you need to build your retirement corpus for. And health is one area where there will be major expenses. So a good health insurance to cover that along with that. And you will have to build your own calculation because it is a very individualistic thing.
Very important chime in there that you can totally take your health insurances and cover it up, that your even room expenses and all of that are covered. Please read your insurance papers and try to understand them. Or there are a lot of sites. I mean, I would want to plug in for a couple of sites. We also have, there is something called a Know Your Card on Bima Pay, which is a startup. They are working on clearing up your insurance. You literally have to just upload your insurance document, and they will come out with like 5 to 10 crisp lines as to what your insurance policy means. That saves up 50, 60 pages of reading onto fine print, which you may or may not understand either. Also, we are exposed to a lot of credit cards these days, Hemant. We all, I mean, technically, most of us, at least the newer generation, would revolve around credit cards. What we buy credit cards around the thought process that, okay, I mean, when I bought my first credit card, I was getting a Zomato Gold 1+1 offer in it. I was getting a free membership. and hence I bought my credit card. But with time, I realized that now when I buy a credit card, I look at the kind of hidden insurances on my credit card. You know, in case I'm missing on a flight, my credit, and I have booked it with my credit card, I can save up. You know, I can claim that amount. If I if I'm sort of making, you know, if my baggage is lost on a travel, international or national or, you know, domestic, I can save up on that. So, I mean, these are aspects that I look at. So I would want to plug in Bima Pay as a startup, guys. Please check them out.
Sure, sure. So, ladies and gentlemen, KYC, know your credit card and the benefits it is offering to you. And I think just to slide it in there, always pay your credit card bills before time. Never get into the zone of paying the interest because they are exorbitant. Okay. We had questions about SIP mutual funds. Yes, they are the safe investments for everybody. Okay. We have talked about gold. We have talked about ETFs. Fantastic. Yeah, there was one question specifically. Not sure if we have the answer, but what are the advantages of getting a ULIP and a traditional insurance policy, or should they be avoided? Anybody wants to share any thoughts on that, or is it too much for us to share? Because I have no idea about these two things personally.
Will you repeat your question, Hemant?
Okay. What are the advantages of getting ULIP and a traditional insurance policy, or should they be avoided?
ULIP, I can suggest, I mean, I would completely say that ULIP is not a great policy to be it.
Okay.
As far as, you know, as far as you have your health insurances sorted, the next thing that you should be looking at when you're getting ahead of your 30s, in your starting 30s, between 30 to 33 is when your premiums would be low as well. Try looking at term insurances. ULIPs are complicated policies, and by most financial advisors, at least if they are not trying to befool you, would sort of advise against ULIPs. So I would say you can totally stay away from ULIPs.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. I think those are the questions which I was able to see. Any questions added in the last 2 minutes? Okay. Nothing here. So I don't have any more questions. We have Alex who would like to share something. Alex, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Yes, Alex.
Hi, Hemant. Yeah, you know, like when I got the mailer from Jyotika, I thought this is something. I am a personal finance evangelist, and I thought, let me see what are the things that are being shared here. What I found is, you know, I'm a great follower of Warren Buffett, and in that, most of us, we have forgotten many things. We are very good at earning an income, but when it comes to managing it, we are pathetic. Some basic ground rules, ULIPs to be avoided, just like the previous speaker said, they are weapons of mass wealth destructions. Money back policies to be avoided. Anything that any agent, insurance agent sells has to be avoided. The only good policy for us is a pure term insurance with no return of premium. Do not take that, because that again, never mix investment and insurance. ULIP is a pathetic thing. None of the insurance companies will sell you a term policy because they make the lowest money on that. Most of us have been sold LICs by family, friends, or relatives, though. And especially when it comes to policies with children's plan or anything with children and all, please note, these are very good for educating children. Only thing is that they will not be your children. It will be your agent's children or somebody else's. The only best thing to do is to invest in SIPs. And like somebody mentioned, even for a zero investment knowledge person, the safest thing is to invest in Nifty 50. You could choose ETF or you could choose mutual fund. You can just put it and forget it. You do not even have to look at any other thing. And start early, like Jyotika said. Be regular, like you said. And don't invest what is left after saving. Invest first and then go through with whatever is left. That is the thing. Avoid credit cards, because credit card companies are very good at telling pay only minimum. If you pay only the minimum, you will pay for your lifetime and you will not finish it. Just like the earlier speaker said, if in terms of Albert Einstein's eighth wonder of compounding, credit card investments, if you are having a credit card and you have pending amount, do not even think of investing in mutual funds or anything. FDs were good when my parents were investing. It was at 12%. Over here, it has come down. It is again a way of losing out your money. It's so good that if you can just invest maybe 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees to learn a little bit of personal finance, we can. Because I was talking to somebody, they said, today the educated people, they are the easiest to fool. Look around. I think we now have 33 people. You will find at least 90% of them investing in FDs, and probably about 80% having LIC or HDFC or ICICI policies. So please invest in financial education. It pays the greatest dividend. Thank you, Hemant. Really, really good to see that this topic is being addressed.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Alex. So I think we will conclude our session here. And what I would like to say as a concluding remark is that our whole objective today was to push people on the path of financial literacy. Basically, it means know your finances, know where your income sources are, the need for additional sources of income, the need for your existing wealth to grow. Otherwise, it will keep losing money. Become more aware and research and read and talk about finances so that you know where are all the different avenues where you can invest money. And start talking to somebody who understands finance much better than you do. Go take a help from a financial advisor. Set up your goals, financial goals, and then the financial advisor can also advise you accordingly on how will you reach your financial goals. In the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what are the big expenses you are expecting and some of the unexpected ones, and or what kind of corpus you would like to build for your retirement. Once you have these basics in place, a financial advisor in conversation with you can design your investment plan looking at what your current income is, what your current sources, alternate sources of incomes are, or what are your liabilities at hand. Our objective was to bring you and push you in that direction, and hope we have been able to fulfill at least a part of it. Hope you go out of this session thinking about money in terms of money management, managing the money you have, managing the money you will build. Not just thinking about money, but about the wealth it will grow to. On that note, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for coming. The 2 links for the next session are in the chat box as well as the feedback form. Would be great to hear some feedback from you all. And yes, if everybody who is present till now can come on video, we have 31 in the room, and it will be great to see you all with your videos on. We can take a picture.
Also, before you conclude, Hemant,
Yes, sure.
thank you guys. Thank you, Arif. I mean, we happened to sort of have a small discussion, and that's what has led us to this webinar. So thank you, Arif. Thank you, Said sir. Thank you, Jyotika, and Hemant. And if I'm missing out on any names, Alexander, and everyone here, Uzma ji, to have sort of put in a subject and discuss something that is very close to my heart. And my attempt, at least, to the likes of people who are close to me, would always be to make them financially literate. If I could do whatever small efforts I could make, I would try to work on those. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Request all the members to at least come on video for just a few seconds. It will take a quick 10 seconds to take a picture. Siddhi, Anna, Avneet, Anil, Neetu, Soumya, Sara, Roshna, Tajinder, Sirat. Quickly. If we can have everybody on video. Thank you, Mayank, Nikhil, Neetu, Asha, Monal, Siddhi, Anna, Amreen, Anil. I took Avneet's name, he completely disappeared. Very camera shy.
Soumya, Anil, Monal, Anna, Parag, Roshana, Seerat.
I'm assuming, Hemant, not everyone is in a blazer as nice as you, and that's why the camera shine is.
Yeah, somebody mentioned is that the doctors, okay, we'll take the doctor also in the picture, no worries. Okay. Okay, I've at least captured one. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. It was nice to have all of you here. See you all next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Hold on, Akshay. Let's take a picture of 6 of us. So I think we have.
Thank you, audience. See you next week.
But recording and Facebook Live has to be stopped.
Yes, I'll do that.